You are listening to Seniors Junction podcast. With me, your hosts today, Dr. Namrata Bagaria, and myself, Dr. Paul Merkley, co-founders of Seniors Junction, and our special guest today, Emily Johnson, CEO of Stronger You Fitness. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, first question for you, could you tell us a bit about yourself and about your business and your experience in the industry?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So, as Paul mentioned, I'm the founder of Stronger You Senior Fitness, and we're a fitness education company. So a bit about my background. I've worked in the chronic disease management sector as well as in senior living. And over the course of my career, fitness has always been something that's continued to be a passion of mine, even though I've worked more in the recreation field over the last 6 years. And I started to see that fitness was an area of opportunity, especially in senior living, where we had a captive audience. We had older adults who wanted to stay fit, they wanted to stay healthy, but the individuals who were running some senior fitness classes didn't seem to have the education and the resources to run really high quality classes. So it was out of that need that I decided to create Stronger You Senior Fitness and ultimately bridge that gap to give people the resources to offer really high quality senior fitness classes that were not just good for the body, but good for the brain, good for social connection. So a really holistic approach to senior fitness.
Awesome.
And you're able to scale it because it's fitness education, not really one-on-one coaching.
Yes, that's correct. That's a common misconception people have about Stronger You Senior Fitness is they'll come to us and say, "Hey, can you teach a fitness class at our, community or our center?" And our focus is really empowering the staff who already work at a senior center or community center to be the in-house experts. So not having to hire people in, especially during COVID, it's harder and harder to get people into something like a retirement community from the community. So to be able to have those individuals already working there be the fitness experts, that's our goal.
That's an interesting business model, and good for you to be making it work.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was quite inspired by what she was doing the first time I spoke to her. So it was like a while ago when we connected, and because it's always interesting to see how different people are solving this problem. And like in my own experience now that fitness and isolation, there's enough evidence coming out that being active is helpful in preventing COVID complications. It's better for your mental health. And so coming from that perspective, what's your take on what are the pain points in the senior community, especially with relation to isolation?
Yeah, absolutely. So isolation, I think it's been a problem for a long time. And I think with COVID, it's only exacerbated the issue. I see it from kind of different perspectives. So when I look at social isolation, where I was mostly working in the senior living industry, I actually didn't see a whole lot of social isolation. People would talk about it, oh, we got to help these seniors get active and get connected. And in the communities that I worked with and worked in, we actually had very vibrant, very connected communities. And if we had an individual who was staying in their suite or didn't want to come out, it was our job as recreation professionals to get to know them, understand what we could do to help them become more connected. And in some cases, they like being in their suite. They love reading a book. There's people out there who just love their solitude, and that's okay too. And for them being, meaningfully engaged in their life is that we help them by saying, hey, we have a coffee and conversation group. You love to read the newspaper. Would you mind just giving us the clippings of your favorite articles? And then, they don't actually come to the coffee and conversation group, but giving them that little task helps them to get engaged. So that was sort of one thing I was seeing in the retirement community sector. And then if I looked out to the community sector where people are still living in their own homes, again, when I worked in chronic disease management in the community, the participants in that program, they were very connected, very engaged. They came to their fitness program 3 times a week, mostly because of health issues, but then also because it was a community that they were a part of, and they looked forward to seeing their friends as well as getting this workout.
Yeah.
And if we fast forward now to the pandemic, I think the area that I'm most concerned about is the community dwelling seniors, because a lot of times they're not visiting their family anymore. They're not able to go down to that community center. So that's where I think the work that Seniors Junction is doing is really important, because we need these new virtual experiences where older adults can connect. You guys are doing a great job with that, because it's high quality. It has to be high quality for them to want to make that
Yeah,
interest in getting virtual.
yeah,
That's new for a lot of older adults. But once
yeah.
they get into it, and there's a reason to get into it, I think that's really going to help with bringing this connectedness back.
This is marvelous, like what you said. And firstly, thank you for the kind words. It gives a little happiness, because we just knew, and it's always a lot of time it takes to get the first cohort going and graduating. But what I really liked about what you said is, when you're within the community, it's not as much as isolation that you experience. And this is something that we've been thinking about, um, because probably we are curious, not because like we don't have much knowledge. Is there a difference in the retirement communities, where if you're independently living versus you need more assistance, or you're in long-term care, and are they more isolated, and the ones who are on and about themselves less? Is there like a distinction based on ability? Like, what is it? Because you see so much in the newspaper, and of course it's mixed. They don't clearly delineate who's isolated.
Yeah.
So what is your experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends. Like there's a whole spectrum, right? And it could be that, each of us has our own unique perspective. And sometimes we think, our perspective is the way the world is, and it's not always the case. So, I think for the organizations and the buildings that I've worked with, and I saw, wow, these are really engaged and connected seniors, that's great. But there's probably another half of the story where we do have communities and organizations where they're not as engaged. Part of that, I think, is also in a retirement community setting could be due to staffing, right? If we think about it, being short staffed, or the recreation department, especially during COVID, having to do things like temperature checks or screening at the front door, where maybe recreation or social connection, it's like, oh, that's not really that important, when, all of us here, we know how important, how crucial that is, maybe as or more crucial than that screener of people coming in the front door or checking people's temperatures. So I think there is definitely a spectrum where we're probably also seeing where people are, yeah, they don't have the mobility to leave their suite on their own, and there's not that staff to go help them to get out of the suite. So, I would guess there is certainly work to be done out there across the whole spectrum.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Paul, go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead. You had something.
Mine
No?
was just like, there's one is the mobility, which is a piece which you mentioned. And I think there's also a difference in the different kind of cognitive abilities, because with virtual programming, right, there's a certain level of cognitive input, output, or things you gotta do, versus when you are in a different stage, where suppose you're in their memory care, or you're in a
Mhm.
long-term care, where it's more on site, like say even if you have a musical event but someone plugs it on, and so it's more, and that's again needs staffing, right? So that still needs
Mhm.
somebody to go and then plug it on and make sure everybody has it going. So I think even that might be creating a digital divide. It's pure conjecture at this stage. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough, because it's also the level of awareness too with how to engage someone. A lot of people think recreation, or, the things that go on at community centers, it's all fun and games, but there's a lot of research and science behind what recreation and life enrichment professionals do, and being able to recognize a person and see them for who they are, and understand what they're interested in. You could knock on Mary's door every single day and say, "Hey, Mary, fitness class," and Mary's not interested. But then you go in and learn about Mary, and maybe she's feeling down, or even depressed, because she feels like she can't do the things that she used to do. So if you knock on Mary's door and you go in and say, "Hey, Mary, remember you used to love going out to lunch with your friends, and I notice you haven't been doing that as much," and trying to get to the root of that and why they're isolating. And you might find out she's embarrassed of her walker. I hear that all the time. Oh, I don't really want to go out. I'm embarrassed of my walker. Well, Mary, did you know if you come to fitness class, we can help you feel more confident, stand up a little taller with that walker. And once they kind of get that connection, they're like, oh yeah, I would love to be able to do that. Okay, that makes sense. I'll come to fitness class. So, I think of, fitness for me, it's the key to interacting effectively with our environment, with life. So if you can
Yeah.
have that strength to be able to go out and be socially connected, I feel like all of
Yes.
these things interweave. Like I mentioned, if you maybe don't like to exercise, but you like the group you're exercising with, you like the social component, then it continues on with the benefit that you're coming for the social, but you're also getting the physical, and everything feeds into one another.
Mhm, 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 mhm.
You've given us a good part of your vision of addressing these issues. Is there something you would add about your philosophy or your way of looking at it?
Yeah, I think there's so many people who play a role in this. Like Seniors Junction, offering quality programs for people to engage at home, engage virtually. This new virtual world is not going away, that's for sure. I was talking to an individual yesterday who was saying that, right away, pandemic hit, they pivoted to virtual, and they found their members really liked virtual. They tried to go back in person for a bit, and everyone was like, nope. I want to stay virtual. So I think virtual organizations have a role to play in keeping people connected, because not everyone feels comfortable going out to a community center, or they don't want to live in a retirement community. So I think virtual will be an important part, creating really high quality virtual experiences. I also think interdisciplinary is going to be big. And this is something I'd like to see more is, individuals like us who are experts in kind of the recreation and fitness fields. We can, scream from the rooftops the quality and the importance of what we do, but I think we need other players involved. I think doctors can play a big role in that.
Yeah.
Right now, if you go to the doctors and you go for your checkup, they check your blood pressure, they check your breathing, they have kind of this list they go through. I would love to see a mental health check as part of all of those visits, because part of that, I think, is, what are you doing to stay connected with your community? How are you staying fit? I think these are things that if a doctor who is that trusted professional can start asking those questions and then referring to programs like Seniors Junction or any, fitness programs in the community, I think all of us as partners can work together to better serve older adults.
No, no, it absolutely makes a lot of sense, and it resonates. It does resonate quite a lot.
Mhm.
So, if this is your vision, which is collaboration, which is basically a whole person care, right? Not just,
Yeah.
it's an ecosystem, basically an individual's ecosystem, and then having key influencers like a doctor or a recreation manager influencing
Mhm.
its sort of persuasion. Um, so, in that sense, what are the challenges and what are the motivations for helping seniors with isolation and with this kind of a vision of interdisciplinarity persuasion?
Yeah, I think we're on a good road. I think a lot of education needs to continue to happen. I'm seeing more and more doctors start to ask, are you exercising? That's good. I see not as much asking about like the mental health issue. Like I've never ever gone to the doctors, and I've doctors never asked me, hey Emily, how are you feeling? Are you feeling lonely, or if you feeling isolated? And I'm a young individual, so maybe they think everything's fine. I smile a lot, but we know that behind someone's smile, you can never tell what's going on the inside. And so I think that's a piece of education within the whole system that we need to address is that, are you connected? Are you staying fit? And then, yeah, we've got all these other physical indicators as well. I think too, it kind of goes to our systemic ageism, or kind of intrinsic ageism, where people think that we have to slow down at a certain age, and a lot of time it's very well-meaning. It's, we'd say, Grandma and Grandpa, oh no, I'll move that for you, or oh, you stay sit, Grandma, I'll bring the food to you. Whereas if Grandma gets up from her table and walks over and gets her plate, and we can help her if she needs help, but doing those little things helps Grandma to stay active and stay strong. So I think there's education needed in one area, but there's a whole global change and shift in the way we look at aging and staying independent, that needs to happen as well.
Yeah, I think also it also has a cultural connotation, right? Because, like, for example, if you come from a culture where I come from, like, a South Asian culture, where it's almost like you would not want your grandmother to do certain things. Mind you, my grandmother lived by herself and she did all her things. So,
Yeah.
like, she never let us. In fact, she would cook and clean and make, like, do it
Mhm.
for us too. So, but by and large, it's an expectation to be treated well, because it's like
Mhm.
I have paid it forward, so I'm going to reap what I have paid forward, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the pandemic, it's very interesting when I see this sort of isolation in India versus in Canada, because right now I'm in my home country for various reasons. Um, what I see is the piece that you mentioned, what is independent and what is connected. It's sort of it's sort of like you have to help people here in India or Asian cultures like ours to be more independent, and versus when you have more people in the Western culture to be more connected, because they are too independent and they're too proud to even ask or integrate. And that's one of the, I'm not saying always, but that's one of
I
the
totally
key
agree with you. Yeah.
differences. Paul, what do you think?
That's what I see too. That's what I see too. I'm also wondering if you have a sense among the people who are living independently in their homes, or those in a retirement residence, um, do you feel that there's a difference in risk of isolation for people living by themselves versus people with a spouse or someone who's living with them?
Yeah, yeah, this is something where, and I hear all the time actually, like when we had someone move in brand new to retirement community, a lot of times they didn't really want to. They moved in because their family or they had a fall or like something was outside their control, and it was like, okay, me and mom, I think it's time you check out this place. And once they move in and they live there, they're like, wow, if I would have known it was going to be like this, I probably would have moved in sooner. And sometimes, it makes my heart hurt a little bit because people wait so long sometimes to move into a retirement community. They're isolated and alone for years sometimes. They're having falls in their own home, and the quality of life is just, it's really on a downward spiral. And sometimes we get really low on that spiral, and then that's when the family says, okay, it's time to move into a retirement community. And at that point, unfortunately, and this is a little bit blunt, but we're so close to the end that we're just trying to make them comfortable. Whereas when I see someone move in earlier where they're like, you know what, I think I just want to downsize and I don't want to cook or clean anymore. They move in and they're so active. They have that physical strength and they still have that intellectual capacity to now go exercise every single morning, go to book club in the afternoon, head out on the bus to the trips, pre-COVID, go to the evening entertainment, get dressed up, have lunch with your friends. Like I think there's this like wanting to hold on to your home and like it's a badge of honor, like I just want to live at home, I want to live independent. But I think there's a big difference between living in your own home and living independently. And I see sometimes someone, let's say they've come down halfway through the spiral, they move in and they start taking all these exercise classes, they start getting engaged with friends and having almost a new lease on life, and their family sees them a month later and is like, mom, you're like a whole different person, like you were slow and you were tired, and like now I can't even get you on the phone because you're just so busy, you're so connected. So I think I worry more about the people who are like holding on to that, I want to live in my own home, just kind of arbitrarily. Sometimes it's, I want to live in my own home because I like to cook, I like to garden. They have a great quality of life, so those individuals I'm not as worried about. But I worry about the people who want to stay in their own home just for the sake of staying in their own home, thinking that that's the best quality of life they can have when there
Mm-hmm,
could be something better out there for them.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
do you see a big difference between men, men and women?
That's a good question. We don't tend, the female population in retirement communities does tend to be larger. So well, part of it I think is women live longer than men. And like I said, if you're waiting a long time, I think sometimes the men don't get an opportunity to move in. So sometimes we see that, the woman's lost her spouse and then she's moving into a retirement community. But we usually have a great group of core men who are engaged. They become like the ladies' man of the building, and they love it, or they connect with their fellow men in the community. So yeah, there is some gender differences. A lot more females tend to connect, but again, I think that comes back to that recreation professional or whoever it is, to check in with them, find out what's meaningful to them, and then help them connect in that meaningful way.
That's
What,
what.
what advice would you have for a new company like us?
Yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job already. I think one thing that you guys really have going for you, and I said this to Nam, is quality programming. It has to be high quality. Again, I think this is kind of that misconception of aging, is that like, oh, it's almost like a second. I hate when people say this. It's one of my pet peeves. Like it's like a second childhood or a second infancy. And I always say, like, if you get to know an older adult, they're just a person. Their brain, unless there's some dementia happening and things like that, but the brain they have in their head is the same brain they had when they were 20, same personality they had when they were 50. They have all this life experience. They've seen so many incredible things. They're interested in whatever they're interested in, and they want to continue to engage in those things in a really meaningful, high quality way. So I think that's really key, is continuing down that path you guys are on of that high quality programming, because that's what older adults want. They don't want to go to a senior center that's just, things to fill up time. I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of organizations make, is they just want to offer something to fill time when you need to really offer something that's of high quality.
Yeah.
I think getting the older adults as well, really a part of it. So having them to suggest the topics and the programming, that's really big as well. Giving them ownership of the community as well too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think these are some of the things we're already seeing with
Mhm.
our. So I would say in the first cohort, whoever's attending, they're not just people coming. Some of them have become community leaders with us, who are helping us engage with other seniors, right? So the
Mhm.
champions in their own right, and they're helping us with feedback. Sometimes, if they like something more, they like something less. And although Paul's teaching history of Renaissance and Renaissance music, we've also moved on to like questions about, okay, can you just explain what is this Holy Roman Empire? Like, where did it come from? So there's questions we never thought, Paul never thought. And for me, it's basically crash course on, another culture, because I grew up in another culture. So, I'm learning a lot about the Western culture and the history and why something important. But I think what I really liked about what you said, there were a couple of things. Uh, the first part, I'm just going to go a little back with what you said about, is your doctor asking? And
Mhm.
my doctor does ask me every time that I visit, and that's at my university's doctor. She asks me, please, do you
That's
have people to
awesome.
talk to? And it's probably because I'm a newcomer to Canada. So probably
Mhm.
they have a protocol for asking people like me such questions, because it works on a protocol. But she always asks me, what do you do? What do you do? So now I have more respect, because I thought, well, if that's what you get, I thought that's normal for doctors in Canada to ask you that question. So for me, it was,
Yeah.
oh, she asked me this question. So that's the first part. The second part you mentioned about why didn't I move here before?
Mhm.
So earlier, I think in October last year, when we were just getting started with the idea that we might want to go in this business, I
Mhm.
visited one of the properties, and that time the restrictions were such that you could visit from the outside with everything, shield, mask, gloves, whatever. I honestly felt, I was like, can I move in here, please? Because I work two jobs. I'm so tired the whole day. Somebody cooking for me and like having these activities. It's great. Like, I would myself like to live in a gated community which is safe, because it's easier for me to get my work done more efficiently.
Ah,
Yeah.
My
Honestly,
husband and I cannot wait. We're always looking at the newest buildings. We say they should have this same sort of thing for, all ages.
Yeah,
Just adopt that retirement community model
we
for
have
everyone.
that in India. See, that's the thing. We have that.
Okay.
I live in a gated community. We have a recreation center. We have neighborhood activities. So that's what I'm saying, right? So I'm used to
Very
that
cool.
for all ages. So it's intergenerational. You'll see, kids and grandparents, everybody comes. So for me, what's interesting is that it's a special thing only for a few people in Canada. And in my head, I was like, why can't I have access to that? You know, so that's one part. But I think coming to your third part, which you talked about, you know that if you want to focus on high quality programming and not just filling time, and what
Mhm.
our study observation is, so again, the as many seniors, like one of our guests, not our guests but one of our friends had told us, right, the as many seniors, the as many youth, the in terms of personality variation. So if you think saying youth programming you can get away with doing youth programming is the same thing saying senior programming you can get away with senior programming. Now there are many people who like to play bingo or bridge and things like that, but not
Mhm.
everybody wants to play bingo, right? I mean,
Yep.
so there's a lot of cliche programming that you see in a lot of centers. Sometimes they don't even have the budgets, they don't have the expertise, and they don't even, or maybe it's in a population where the anyway is not engaged. So
Mhm.
I think your comment repeatedly on high quality programming really is a very good validation for us that the hypothesis which we started off from,
Yep.
that we can't just give you a thing to do. You have to, it's almost like having a purpose to it. Like you have to, we are helping you find something that you can connect with, within and outside of you. Like, so we keep it 8 week long, and those kind of things. It's the same thing with fitness, right? It's like you can go to the activity class, or you're bought in intrinsically that I want to do this, and that
Mhm.
shift takes a while, but it also takes a setting.
Yep.
If I give you the environment or the tools, you will be more easily bought in on, yeah, I need to exercise every day or whatever. So I
Mhm.
think a lot of what you said, it's just so, firstly, you smile so beautifully. And that's something like so exciting for me. The ones who are listening to the podcast, I'm sorry, watch the YouTube. But this is so interesting for me to see, have like a guest who's like really energetic and active. And you're not the only ones who are doing that. So that's good. Um,
Yes.
but thank you. Thank you so much. And so if people want to know more about your organization, can you tell us your coordinates?
Yeah, so they can visit Stronger U, so it's stronger with the letter U, seniorfitness.com, and they can learn all about our mission, what we're doing, and look for classes. If they're older adults looking for senior fitness classes, we do have those listed on our website. But as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, we are an education company first and foremost. So specifically, if there's individuals or organizations listening today and they want to bring more high quality fitness, not just the fitness component, but all
Yeah.
really components of wellness and being holistically healthy, then yeah, definitely check out strongeryouSeniorFitness.com, as well as LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find us on all the social media channels.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank
Emily.
you very much.
Thank you for having me.